Hello students. In the last session we studied about the external morphology of the marcantia. In the external morphology of the marcantia, we saw that marcantia is made up of a thallophytic plant body and which is dorsiventrally flat growing onto the prostrate onto the land surface. The dorsal region is green and photosynthetic in nature. They have number of rhomboidal shaped structures on it, sections on it, and they also have the midget on which the gemma cups are present. And also there are knots, and in the ventral region we saw that it has the number of series structures called as phagocytes, which helps in the fixation and absorption of minerals and water. And you also know that it has the scales which protects it. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to study about the internal anatomy of the marcantia. When you consider the internal anatomy of marcantia, the marcantial plant, when it is cut vertically, and it is when the section of the marcantia is cut vertically and observed under the microscope, you can find that, okay, there are number of cells which is arranged overlapping with each other, and you can differentiate these cells into different zones. Okay, there are mainly three different zones of in the marcantia. You can differentiate the VS, vertical section of marcantia, into three different regions. That is the epidermal region. Okay, these two regions of it is the epidermal region, and second region is photosynthetic region, and the third region is storage region. The structure of marcantia, the tissues of marcantia are arranged in three different regions, that is epidermal region, second is photosynthetic region, and third one is storage. So what is this epidermal region, photosynthetic region, and storage region? So here what you can do is, okay, storage region is the first layer of cell, which you can see in the microscope, this layer, and the last layer of cell, this layer, you can see that there are a number of cells which is arranged very close to each other. You see, okay, there are number of cells which is arranged very close to each other, but they are single layered. Even at the top, the cells are a little bit bigger, but they are arranged close to each other and single layer. These two single layered, closely arranged cell, which is found on the upper and lower region, is called as the epidermal region. There are two types of epidermis. The upper epidermis, which is found on the dorsal region of the marcantia, and the lower epidermis, which is found on the ventral region of the marcantia. The upper epidermis, okay, which is having the cells which is closely arranged, but it is not continuous. It has small gaps in between, which is called as air gaps, or it is called as chimney cells or chimney pores. Okay, these gaps are made up of special type of cells called as the pore cells, which is made up of around 3 to 4 cells are present, and they are arranged in 3 to 4 layers. Okay, they are arranged in 3 to 4 layers, and they form a small hole in between them. This is called the pore, okay, or the chimney pore, and the cells which makes the chimney pore is called the chimney cells. This region is very important region because this is a region which acts like a stomatal apparatus or stomatal cell in other green plants. Here, since marcantia is a water bryophyte and their plant body is very simple, not well differentiated into leaf, stem, and roots, So here it is only made up of a mass of tissue, but still they have small pores like stomata. It is not the stomata, it is a small pore like stomata. So what is it? What is the function of stomata in the higher plants? We know that it helps in the exchange of gases during photosynthesis and respiration. As that of the stomata itself, here in marcantia, the chimney pore cells are formed and they form a small hole in it. It's called a chimney hole or chimney pores. Okay, this helps in the exchange of gases during the respiration and photosynthesis. Okay, so this is about the upper epidermis. Upper epidermis is a single row of cells which is closely arranged and it is not continuous. It is discontinuous because of the presence of the small pores which helps in the exchange of the gases. These pores are made up of specialized cells called as chimney cells. There are around 4 to 5 chimney cells forms a um, tire. Okay, forms a tire. Okay, like this, there are 3 to 4 tires which is arranged. Okay, in between they have a hole which helps in the exchange of gases. This is about the upper epidermis. Coming on to the lower epidermis, the lower epidermis is also made up of single layered cell, okay, which is closely arranged and they are continuous. Single layered cell which is closely arranged and they are continuous and they are found in the ventral region, whereas upper epidermis is found in the dorsal region. The lower epidermis is found in the ventral region. That is why we can see number of from number a few epidermal cell extra, okay, extending hair-like structures are developed. These hair-like structures are called as rhizoids and the scales, which helps in the fixation and absorption and protection. So here the lower epidermis is a layer of epidermis which is found on the lower or the ventral region. They are single layered, which is closely arranged, and they develop the rhizoids and scales on it. Okay, this is the first layer that is about the epidermis. Okay, I think you are very clear. Epidermis is the single layer of tissues which is closely arranged. They are differentiated into two, that is upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Upper epidermis is found on the dorsal surface, which is green photosynthetic. They are closely arranged but not continuous. They have small pores on it called as chimney pores or the air pores, which is made up of specialized cells called as chimney cells. And the lower epidermis is found in the ventral region. They are closely arranged, made up of parenchymatous tissue, and they develop the rhizoids and scales. They are found on the ventral region. Hope you all are clear with this. The second region. Going on to the second region is the photosynthetic region. This region is the photosynthetic region. The second region, the photosynthetic region, is made up of many cells, but these cells are not closely arranged. They have large gaps, air gaps in it, or we call it as air chambers. These air chambers help in the storage of air, okay, and help in the buoyancy of the marcantia, which helps the marcantia to float onto the surface of water. And also, the air chamber is attached to the single layer of photosynthetic cells, which is made up of chloroplast, or it is made up of chlorine primers. These second layer, that is photosynthetic layer, is made up of chlorine primers and they have large air gaps. And from the chlorine primers, okay, that is the supporting layer which is found horizontal. From this layer, number of filamentous cells arises, okay, which is having lot of chlorosynthetic pigments. These filamentous cells help in the photosynthesis and also they produce the food. They help in the production of the food materials. So this is about the second layer. Second layer is the photosynthetic layer. Photosynthetic layer is just below the upper epidermis and they have larger air spaces called as air chambers. And These air chambers are separated with a single row of cell, which is made up of chlorenchyma and helps in the photosynthesis. And this single layer of cells, which gets partitioned with by the walls, these cells helps in the production of filamentous cells, which arises in the air chambers, and they help in the photosynthesis. So these photosynthetic region helps in the production of food, okay, as a result of photosynthesis. And they have a lot of chloroplast in the cells, so it is called as chlorenchyma. So photosynthetic region is made up of chlorenchyma cells, which undergoes photosynthesis and produces the food. So the second layer is also clear. The third layer is the storage layer. So this layer is called as the storage layer. The photosynthetic cells, okay, which is present in the photosynthetic region, the second region. Here, these cells, when it produces the food, the produced food as a result of photosynthesis, the food which is produced is transported to the ventral surface, that is lower part of the marcantia, where it can be stored. Okay, so they are moved to the lower region. The lower region is made up of compactly arranged. Okay, this layer is made up of compactly arranged, and they lie just beneath the photosynthetic region. The third region is the storage region. The storage region is made up of compactly arranged cells, that is non-photosynthetic cells. Okay, they are just below the photosynthetic cells. These devoid the chloroplast. They do not have any chloroplast in it. That is why they do not undergo photosynthesis. But they help in the storage of the food which is being produced during the photosynthesis. All the food which is produced in the form of oil, starch, and mucilage, okay, it is found stored into this region, compactly arranged parenchymatous region. Okay, so all the food which is produced during the photosynthesis is stored in this region in the form of oils, and mucilage, and they are also made up of contain starch and protein granules, but mostly they are stored in the form of mucilage and oils. So the cell which stores the photosynthetic products in the form of oils and mucilages are called as mucilaginous cells and oily cells. So the third region is made up of the mucilaginous cells and the oil cells, which helps in the storage of the food. The stored cell becomes thicker in the center and tapering at the margin. Since it stores the food material synthesized by the photosynthetic region, the central region of the cell, which stores the starch and proteins, becomes thicker in the center and thin at the margins. Cells of the midribs are elongated and with reticulated thickenings. Okay, whereas this is found on the leafy part, that is the flat part. Whereas in the midrib, the cells in the midrib are elongated and thick. Okay, this is about the internal anatomy of the marcantia. Okay, so in general, to conclude this, the internal anatomy of marcantia is studied by taking the vertical section of the marcantia. When you take the marcantial vertical section and observe it under the microscope, you can find this type of arrangement of tissues, that is cells. It shows three different regions, that is epidermal region, photosynthetic region, and storage region. The epidermal region are of two types, upper epidermis and lower epidermis. Upper epidermis is single-layered and non-continuous, found on the dorsal surface. Non-continuous because of the presence of chimney pores. Lower epidermis is continuous and they develop a rhizoids, okay, fibrous cells called as rhizoids and scales. The second region is the photosynthetic region. The photosynthetic region are made up of large air gaps. These air gaps are called as air chambers, which also help in the buoyancy of the marcantia. These air chambers are separated with the walls with the help of a single layer of cells, which is having a lot of photosynthetic pigments. Okay, these undergo the photosynthesis. So this region is called as photosynthetic region. And just below the photosynthetic region is non-chloroplast containing or non-chlorophyll containing cells. These are parenchyma cells, which is closely arranged. Okay, so this is just below the photosynthetic region. Since it is just below the photosynthetic region, the food prepared by the photosynthetic cells are stored in this region. The starch and proteins are also stored, and the food stored is in the form of oils and mucilage. So, any cells which stores oils or mucilage are called as oil cells and mucilage cells. And these cells, since they store the food substances, they become thicker at the center and thinner at the surface. This is about the internal anatomy of the marcantia. Coming on to the midrib region, the cells in the midrib region are elongated and reticulated thickening. Okay, this is about the internal anatomy of the marcantia. In the next section, we'll be studying about the reproduction of the marcantia. Okay, so reproduction are of two types: vegetative reproduction and sexual reproduction. We'll study in detail in the next session. Thank you.